Now we're going to introduce some exponents with square roots, but really this shouldn't bother us because we know that the square root of 2 squared just means the square root of 2 times the square root of 2, which is the square root of 4, which is just 2. And the second one, negative square root of 11 squared, well, that would just mean negative square root of 11 times negative square root of 11. And negative times a negative is always a positive, and 11 times 11 is 121. And the square root of 121 is just 11. Now, one thing you may have noticed from both of these, if you have a square root and you square it, what you're left with is just the radicand. A square and a square root undo one another. Let's take that idea a step further. Actually, before we take it a step further, why don't you try to? First, what is the square root of 12 squared? And second, what is negative root 15 squared? Hit pause. You should have gotten 12 for the first one and positive 15 for the second one, because remember, a negative times a negative would always be a positive. Let's look at a couple more. Here we have 2 root 3 times 8 root 3. And this would be 16 times the square root of 9. But the square root of 9 is just 3. And 16 times 3 is 48. If you already tried the next one, 3 root 6 squared, well, that would be 9 from 3 times 3 times the square root of 36. And all together, that would just be 9 times 6, or 54. Why don't you try these two? 6 root 11 times 5 root 11, and 5 times the square root of 8 squared. Let's see how you did. 6 times 5 is 30, and the square root of 11 times the square root of 11 would just be 11. 30 times 11 would be 330. How'd you do? Last one, 5 root 8 squared. Well, 5 times 5 is 25, and the square root of 8 squared is just 8. And 25 times 8 is 200. Hopefully at this point you feel real good about multiplying square roots.